Hello and welcome. I am Sarah Schweppe. I'm an essence coach who supports divorced women to create the soul-nourishing relationships that their heart longs for. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about personas. I reference these all the time. Learning about personas was such a game changer for me because those parts of myself that were hidden and I was ashamed of and I didn't want to come out in relationship, that of course ultimately did, it gave me a whole new frame for looking at them and understanding them and working with them. So personas are parts, if you know internal family systems, they are unconscious parts of us that come in typically as a kid to protect us from having big feelings. We develop them unconsciously. What happens, at least my perspective, is that we come into this world as a beautiful little divine being, right? Like babies. Oh, why do we love being around them so much? They're so sweet. And then over time, life happens. Something happens. The milk gets spilled. The parent doesn't come when the kid cries. A big trauma happens, or we're bullied. Like all these things in life that ultimately I think are unavoidable, right? Something's always going to happen. We're going to have feelings. And if we didn't have someone at the time to sit down with us and help us to have that feeling, hold space for it, then that feeling, that energy gets stuck in our body. And in that moment, when the feeling comes up, if we didn't have that ability, right, because maybe our parents didn't know we were having big feelings, maybe the feelings were too big for us, maybe our parents didn't know any better, all the reasons, right, then we look around and we look at like, well, what are other people doing? This is often how you can look at personas through like the different generations, right? Schweppes don't cry. That's not actually one in my family. But, we can see how these are around for decades and decades because we learn how to be. And so then we take on, we eat food. That's going to make us feel better. Or, we criticize our partner, right? So all these ways that we have of avoiding our feelings, we learned from someone way back when we couldn't have our own feelings. So these personas, what's so great about them, learning about them through this frame, is they're not who we really are. They're just our defenses. So in relationship, when we first start out and we're in our essence and we have our best foot forward and it's so beautiful and loving, I think our number one personas are also present. The number one personas being those personas that are very forward facing, outward facing in the world. The caregiver, the do-gooder, the high achiever, the businessman, right? There's probably a lot of these on dating sites of like the parts of us that are more celebrated in society, right? So those personas are up front. And then eventually and inevitably, those personas get tired. And then our number two personas come in. This is the point in relationship where we're like, who the hell are you? This is not who I got together with. And who am I? Relationship is bringing out the worst side of me and it's your fault. You're bringing this out of me. No, turns out that we have these darker sides. We have these personas. And when we get tired enough, they come out. So the control freak, the isolator, the runner, the chaser, the manipulator, right? These ways that we know we're not supposed to be. And we have a great culture to help us repress them even more. And then they come out and we're terrified. Is that who you really are? Oh my God, this must be who you are. Or is this who I am? And it looks like in relationship that is who we really are. Because without a way to shift out of those feelings that the persona is keeping at bay, the persona will stay active. Personas will die. Some of them, the suicidal one, before we have our feelings. Right? I think about like the alcoholic personas, just trying so hard to help us not feel the shitty things, but it's so destructive in the meantime. But I see these personas as scared little kids doing the best they can. So if we can bring more love and light into them to recognize that we all have them, then maybe they wouldn't have to come in with such force and take over. that they could feel loved and heard and seen, and we could give them what they didn't get way back when, so that they could trust us, that they could loosen their grip, let go of that energy so that our higher self, our essence, our adult self can move that through. So how does this happen that we get into a persona, right? Like I said, we're in essence, right? When we're not in a persona, we're not below the line, we're just in our essence, in our creative brain, then something happens. You give me a look, the job gets lost, the milk gets spilled, whatever it is, something is always going to happen, and we can rely on that happening in life. So then we have a feeling, right? If we know how to just have that feeling, to move it through our body, then we'll go back to essence. And then this is sort of life. Life from above the line, conscious living, right? Because we have to have a body, we have to have feelings, we have to have something that informs us of the world outside. We have to have a way to respond to it, right? So this ain't going away. We're always going to have these feelings. If we don't have the feeling, our persona comes out, right? Because our persona has to keep us from our feelings. So then we're walking around in a persona. And the personas live in projection, right? So just to show you again, we're in our essence, something happens, we have a feeling. If we have a feeling, we just go back. This could be relationship. This could be your relationship. Having feelings, coming back into expansion. Having feeling, coming back. But many of us are having feelings, not having them, and living and existing in a persona. Think about like the workaholic, or, in relationship, the one who's doing all the work and the one who slacks. Like, our personas have entanglements with other people's personas. But before I get there, I want to talk a little bit about projection. So the persona has a certain perspective on the world, right? So when I'm in a persona, it looks like the world is happening to me. Doesn't look like I have anything to do with the world. But what's happening is I'm actually projecting my own internal experience out onto the world. So when I'm in my control freak persona, it looks like everyone's out of control and people need to be controlled and it's not safe. And this persona unconsciously is finding and requiring that situation. It's requiring the world to look like people are out of control. There are people that I need to control. And people will show up that way, right? Because if the world is not reflecting my inner reality in that way, if it doesn't look like there's people to control and situations to control, then my persona doesn't have a job. And if it doesn't have a job, I'm going to feel those feelings from way back when that it came in to help me not feel. So personas are very, very serious about doing their job, because they're like a little kid in us, right? Doesn't know that those feelings aren't actually going to kill us. That it is safe to have those feelings. It may not have been way back then, but here we are as an adult, and these personas take over, and they take over our perspective, and we don't know it because it's so unconscious. But how brilliant is that? That life is showing up as a way to support the persona to keep me out of my feelings. I have so much appreciation and reverence for them because they do their jobs and they do them well. And we needed them back then. But they're not so helpful in relationship, because now my control freak persona is wanting to find people to control. So I might get in an entanglement with somebody like who has an out of control persona, or somebody who's got an irresponsible persona, something that would fit really well. And so then in relationship, my control freak finds the irresponsible one who needs to be controlled, like needing to be controlled, that's arguable. And then we entangle together and we create these arguments over and over. But you're not doing what you're supposed to do. And I'm always having to be on your back to get it done. And if I don't do that, you're not going to get it done. You're always hassling me and you never get off my back. And right. So then you're arguing. Both the personas are arguing from their perspective because it's real. It looks very real. The perspective, you can't argue with someone's reality. And so now we found another person to stay even further outside of the actual emotional experience. So in order to move through this entanglement, which doesn't have to do with communicating better or getting somebody to do something different, from my view, it's about each person becoming willing to feel the feelings that are driving the persona's behavior. How do you do that? SEW. There's multiple ways to move energy, but I would say SEW. If you haven't watched that video, go ahead and find that on my channel. It's called SEW. Once you can actually go into the body and move that energy through, the persona dissolves. It's a very, 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 very cool thing, because now I'm back in the driver's seat of my own life. I'm not at the whim of life. And in fact, I'm actually creating my own reality in this way. And so if that's true, where do I want to create from? Because we create from our state. So if I'm creating from personas, I'm probably creating a shit ton of chaos in my life. If I'm creating from my essence, it's flowy, it's connected, it's loving, I'm appreciative. It's very, very different. So personas, they're so fun. One of my favorite things about this workshop that we do with EPI at Essentials is on the day of personas, we all get to pick one of our favorite personas. We have this big dress up box and we dress up like them and we go around in the room and we introduce ourselves. And I feel a little teary because it's such a moment for me, because I'm seeing so many parts of myself reflected in other people, and I just have so much compassion because we're bringing awareness into the fact that this isn't who we really are. These are defenses there to protect us, and it's so special because for so long I tried to make these parts of me go away, and I tried to make them go away in other people. Turns out that doesn't work. You can't shove personas away because they're such an important defense. But what you can do is join with them. You can talk to them like you would a little kid. You can reparent them. And you can build a relationship with them over time so that they can begin to trust you, that you can actually feel the feelings. You can move the energy through now. One of the things I love that I've heard Julie Colwell say is we can't influence something we don't have a relationship with. So often in life, in our relationships, we have these personas wreaking havoc. We're just trying to squash them and make them go away and control them. Well, that's not really relationship building, right? It's actually turning toward them, being willing to see them and hear them and love them, that they will begin to loosen their grip. So I think that's what I want to say about personas for today. There's a lot to it. There's a lot to play with. There's a persona interview I'm often doing with clients where it actually takes you into the feelings. The persona can show us what feelings they're not feeling, when and where those feelings got stuck will often blurb up from our unconscious, and then we can access what we really want. It's a very powerful process. Okay, let me know what you think about personas, what questions you have. I'd be happy to answer them. Have a great day.